미장 존을 모는 진본 감자다 바그르다른 감산도 셔머도 tumba de janla ki jomzar nejero zeringi jangamsa jawr de ki janla yala jime bunzo jala zoran de gonje toban bora shinje lo gonje toban bora shinje lo gonje toban bora shinje lo tenep jomden de ki le zamba chma me pe chba lan der ke chi kap sa to rigi chodo gengge devjang shbala stando perkirwa di ce cho devjang shbala chirtrta der ke chi kap sa dang jomden de la le zamba Jimame Petrbi, Nderkich Surdo, Jordan de Gungatse, the Division Shabala, Stan Sarvati, Division Shabba Mumtonvilla, Stava Lagso, Ngonjim Tani, Martieba, Shimim Tar Mumpova, Tartariki Tila, Magne Batava Lagso, Tichislat Zena, Zigji Division Net, Zigji Division Niki Ramjan, Zig Mamchiba. Chorwa devjin niki ramjante, chorwa mamchi bago, ndashi devjin niki ramjante, ndashi mamchi bago, ndashi ji devjin niki ramjante, ndashi mamchi bago, number jibi devjin niki ramjante, number jiba mamchi bago, kam jina magne barte, namki kamdam chongba go, gemchir jigna marti barte, muk lamne shindan debar, nawe lamne shindan debar, nai lamne shindan debar, chi lamne shindan debar, ligi lamne shindan debar, igi lamne Shindan deba kamuksumdang manjeba, chamaksumdang jarwa, number tarwaksum jisum shiba, rigbaksum toba, matoba, yang toba toba, chutamchila machakbam tarpshimba, yang takba nikim tala mamjiba, devjin yutarabdang nibala panzanda, shab jarwa, gi makit, ba, kinle maragbam, sanyat mamjibam, sanyat tamjiba, malagba, Sanyag chigbara yang malagba, sanyag tataba yang malagba, tokbar jerwa yang malagba, kundur tokbar jerwa yang malagba, number tokbar jerwa yang malagba, parurna yang malagba, sururna yang malagba, huina yang malagba, dana yang malagba, pambana yang malagba, dena yang malagba, zena yang malagba, number siban sarur jiba yang malagba, malagba. Number Ziba Nebayam, Malakba, Mambayam, Malakba, Nawayam, Malakba, Mayam, Chibam, Zama, Mamchiba, Nyamchua, Malakba, Totna Damba, Malakba, Yerlamanisha, Chugla Magneba, Gevayam, Malakba, Magevayam, Malakba, Dishijam, Malakba, Dimashijam, Malakba, Kungatondagam, Joba, Malakba, Jimbayam, Malakba. Sirnayam Malakba, Tsatam, Sayam Malakba, Tsatam Chara, Sumayam Malakba, Zoparayam Malakba, Nusim Sayam Malakba, Sunji Zagam Malakba, Leloyam Malakba, Santandayam Malakba, Yamarayam Malakba, Shiripdayam Malakba, Shiripda, Jobayam Malakba, Dimbarayam Malakba, Zimbarayam Malakba, Nipram Chongayam Malakba. Nipar Manjimbayam Malakba, Jobar Gibayam Malakba, Jor Majibayam Malakba, Maladam Shubatam Shinda Chapate, Janta Kirwagam Malakba, Janta Majirbayam Malakba, Jimbar Gubayam Malakba, Jimba Mugu Mujurwagam Malakba, Zuvar Givagam Malakba, Rubber Givagam Malakba, Sama Mamchi Bandi, Mashi, Dima Giba, Chantam Charava, Nyamba Niki Nyamba, Chuniki. Songbam, Songbadam, Mamchiba, Sontim Songbam, Mamchiba, Zervishindan, Deba, Gua, Malakba, Jibagam, Malakba, Shindan Debagam, Malakbam, Tongadam, Tubadam, Shipchok Shibadam, Renabra Rikbagam, Malakbam, Dabatam, Mamchiba, Tamchin Gimbi, Ishidam, Songbar, Toba, Chu, Tamchid, Nyumjang, Chu, Tamchila, Shipchok, Mamchiba, Toba, Tamchid, Kanamatuba, Mamchiba, Chiang, Mamchiba, Shnigma Mamchiba, Martoba, number Martoba, Magiba, Makiba, Mantoba, Mashonwa, Kane Mamjongwa, Jongbar, Kirwagam, Malaba, Jongbar, Manjirwagam, Malaba, Jigba, Mamchiba, Kanj, Mamchiba, Nyang, Mamchiba, Gava, Mamchiba, Lava, Mamchiba, Tarnyat, Tamba, Tamchi, Jobrkiva, Malabati, Jondan, Division Shaba, Skunundertati, Telatir, Tava, Lagso, Gungo, Gunga te tardam tongwa tena yang takparam tongwa lagaso, gungar namba jandam tongwa tena lukparam tongwa lagaso, tenip jomdende ki tsetang damba shari velandar kachik sordo, jomdende rikjiva, chimami pachakpa te yang santi ki jang kane pu she te santi ki jang dharam chi, jomdende ki kaptsarwa shari ve kyo ki kyewe damba ndala kyot kane shimpu te, ndar kego ji ti shigete ni tsidan dan ba shari vel zamba chama me ba chaba la ndar ke cher mezo rikki we chu kan ni shimbu de ndar ke chama me ba chaba me ba nerten gi chu kan de ngomber chi bi chu de lan chim hoa dan ke wa kan yang me tam me ba chu de lan chim hoa gam ke wa kan yang me to 今天要讲这么多
So that's how much we'll be learning today.
我们今天呢就开始讲为目积极了，然后
resume the Vimalakirti Sutra class today. The past few days, we've been having Dharma assemblies and practicing together, and for various reasons, I think majority of the people got a little distracted from the practice, the actual practice and study. And from today onwards, I really hope that you can gather your mind back to focus again onto contemplation practice and listening and studying. Let it be that you need to then recite, to debate, or studying, or even exams. Then this is the time that you should resume your regular kind of mentality of focusing on your study. Usually, people would start rather quite laxity with a sense of laziness, and then they get a little bit, or rather, lots of people would start very diligently, and halfway through, they somewhat feel a bit more relaxed, and then at the end they completely give up. In such a way, it is called that you have a tiger's head, yet you have a tail as a snake. So in such a way, you won't be able to study, and you won't be able to fully immerse with the Dharma. So I really hope that you could then come back to the class and to gather your mind back, to focus again, rather than being so distracted most of the time. I think what's most important is to have such a pure mind, a joyful mind, and eager mind to learn the Mahayana teachings. This is really probably the happiest times in your life, because I think after 50 years, a lot of people probably won't be with us. Maybe majority of us won't be here anymore. But just look at us now. We are studying the Dharma. Last century, during 80s and 90s, there were people studying at that time, and now when we look at ourselves, today is August 12th, and we're studying. How about after 1 decade or two, could you be sure of still having such opportunity to listen to the Dharma? Therefore, contemplating upon impermanence and the rare opportunity of listening to Mahayana Dharma, I think you should be quite joyful. Also, you should really focus your mind onto Mahayana Buddhism. So in that way, your life would be rather very fulfilled and very valuable. Today, we will then resume our class, and our class on Vimalakirti Sutra. And today, we will then start the new chapter, that is chapter 12, the vision of Akshobhya Buddha. Akshobhya Buddha is the Buddha of the East. I think in the Lotus Sutra of Great Compassion, where it says that Shakyamuni Buddha in the causal stage encouraged him to then to become enlightened, and that's how he then became enlightened. It is said that if you were to chant the mantra of Akshobhya Buddha, you'll be able to be liberated from the suffering and harm that comes from humans and non-humans, as well as would help you to then wake up or alleviate the suffering when you are when you're having nightmare. So it has lots of merits, and I'll give you the oral transmission of Akshobhya's mantra. Is that right? I think this is it. When I was really young, I used to then herd the yaks, and Lama Riga, he used to herd the yaks with me, and he often chanted this mantra at that time. And within the mantra it says Gangana Gangana Chuchana Chuchana. And among the villagers, there was a person whose name is Gunga, and there's also a neighbor whose name is Junja. And I constantly contemplate upon myself, why are you constantly chanting their names? And at that time, he said, well, you don't know, you don't understand yet, and when you grow up, you understand. In fact, the content of this mantra is rather very difficult to understand. I think I don't understand it until now. But this is a mantra. And in the Mandarin version, the Chinese version, the translated version of the mantra, in fact, the translation that is written in the Chinese language is a little bit different in the modern pronunciation, such as God sounds like Ja in the Chinese language. Anyhow, the merits of chanting this Akshobhya Buddha's mantra is then recorded in the merit of 100 mantras composed by Mipa Rinpoche. And by chanting this mantra, lots of the confusion, lots of the anxiety, and even depression could be dispelled. Also, for people who do not have lots of mental stability, who cannot abide in a place for a long period of time, then if they could chant the mantra of Akshobhya, they will be more stable. I think within our chant book, it has this mantra, and I encourage you to chant this mantra often. So let's then look at this chapter of Akshobhya Buddha. At the beginning of this chapter, it talks about how to see the Dharmakaya Buddha. And then in the second part, it talks about the form aspect of a Buddha. So at the beginning, then, Buddha started asking Vimalakirti, saying that, how do you see the Tathagata? How do you see the Nirmana? How do you see the Dharmakaya of the Buddha? And then later, it talks about the Nirmanakaya, or the form aspect of the Buddha. According to Master Jizang, he said that if we grasp onto the Dharmakaya aspect of the Buddha as something illuminous, and if you have some kind of grasping to it, then you won't be able to read the second part of the chapter without a bias. Therefore, it is quite important to then understand the Dharmakaya aspect of the Buddha. Otherwise, we will compare the two Buddhas, Akshobhya and Shakyamuni Buddha. So at the beginning, we have to know that the Dharmakaya aspect are of one nature. So these two Buddhas, Dharmakaya, are of one nature. Therefore, their manifestation in terms of forms and other aspects could be different in the Nirmanakaya aspect in the later part of the chapter, so that we won't compare, we won't have bias. It begins the chapter by saying, at this point, the world honored one asked Vimalakirti, saying that, well, when you wish to see the Tathagata, in what ways do you view the Tathagata? So Shakyamuni Buddha asked Vimalakirti, how do you see Tathagata? And then Vimalakirti answered by saying that, in fact, it has lots of content over here. Majority of the previous masters, they didn't really explain quite extensively, except Master Huiyuan, who then in his commentary explained quite extensively, almost sentence by sentence. Anyhow, Vimalakirti then stated as a summary at the beginning, saying that as if contemplating the real characteristic of my own body, so do I view the Buddha in the same way. So the real characteristic of the body, the ultimate characteristics of the body, or ultimate aspect of the body, this is how I view the Buddha. In some other translations where it says that, including the Tang translation or Xuanzang's translation and Tibetan translation, as well as the Sanskrit translation, where it says that if I do not see the Buddha, then I see the true nature of the Buddha. Anyhow, it has two editions, but the explanation are rather very similar. So the Buddha's body, or the Buddha, the Dharmakaya of the Buddha is really not of any difference with the real characteristic of the body. According to Avatamsaka Sutra, it says that as is the mind, so is the Buddha. As the Buddha, so are the living beings. Know that mind, Buddha, and beings, these three have no differences. So in the ultimate meaning, the ultimate aspect, there's really no difference between the sentient beings and the Buddha. Also, according to the second part of Avatamsaka Sutra, where it then says that if you want to see the true nature, if you want to see the Buddha of three times, then what you should do is to have the view that Tathagata is your mind. And in the later part, it explained what is the nature of mind. So over here, we will then explain this part according to Master Huiyuan's commentary. And according to him, it has three main aspects. The Dharmakaya has three. Dharmakaya is explained in three aspects. The first one is then devoid of delusions, which has 14 aspects. So that's within the first main paragraph. And the first one, it talks about the Dharmakaya from the time aspect. Devoid of delusion has 14 descriptions, and the first description talks about it from the aspect of time. So it talks about when I view Tathagata, he does not come in the past, does not go into the future, and does not abide in the present. So in the past, the Tathagata never came, because the past has already passed. And the future has not, and the future has not come yet, and the Tathagata does not go into the future. And then, if there is no past and no future, how can they abide in the present? According to the Diamond Sutra, where it says that he did not come from anywhere, did not go to anywhere. That is then called thus come. He never come, never went. That is thus come, that is the Tathagata. So from the Dharmakaya aspect, this is called thus come. Today, I think the teaching is rather difficult compared to yesterday's class. Was very simple. People feel that the classes were very simple. Even if without teaching, they feel that they understand. But today, the class is rather, even if I give you the teaching, you probably won't be able to understand it. Yesterday's class was that without speaking, you understand it. Today is with speaking, you probably won't understand it. Anyhow, it talks about it thus come, or Tathagata is our mind. And our mind is, according to Diamond Sutra, it says that the past mind, you cannot attain the past mind, nor the future mind, nor the present mind. That is thus come. That is the Tathagata. So that's the same. And then the second point is then analyzed from the five skandhas aspect. First, it talks about I neither view him as a form. It doesn't have any form such as color like white and red and blue or so. And nor view him as the suchness of form. In Diamond Sutra, it says that if you seek the Buddha through the form, through the sound, then you are not seeing the true Tathagata. You are not viewing him. You would not view him as the suchness of form either. So it talks about the nature of the form. In this translation, in this edition, it then is translated in such a way, but in the Xuanzang's version, it then talks about how it is not a suchness of form because it doesn't have any existent nature of a suchness of form, and it doesn't have a nature of form either. So it talks about all the five skandhas in this three aspects, but the translation is a bit different, but we can then understand it from the aspect that form is not Tathagata, or Tathagata is cannot be sought through form. But we talk about the Tathagata with beautiful forms, and we talked about by meditating, relying upon by sculpture as well as any rupa forms of the Tathagata, you'll be able to then attain merits and do your practice and so on. But over here, the aspect is more from the ultimate aspect, so it's different than the other ones that we used to talk about. And then next one talks about I neither view him as a feeling, conception, and process or consciousness. So over here, it then repeated again, nor view him as a suchness of consciousness, nor view him as the nature of consciousness, and so on. So the five skandhas, according to the sutra, it says that In some sutras say they then analyzed the five skandhas in such a way where it talk about where it analyzes form and then to the feelings, to the conception, and all the way to the consciousness. This is how in sutras it is used to then use logic to analyze the nature of such does not exist. If a Tathagata has any of the five skandhas, then the Tathagata would be the sentient beings who are trapped in the samsara. That's definitely false. Then the next part, it talks about he does not arise from the four great elements and is identical to space. So the earth, water, fire, and wind are not Tathagata. But the nature of the four great elements are identical to space, but the nature of Tathagata does not arise from the four great elements. The fourth one talks about the Tathagata has no arising of six sensory capacities. His eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, and mind. So he does not arise from the six sensory faculties and have already passed beyond his eye, the faculty of eyes, faculty of ears, faculty of nose, faculty of tongue, faculty of body, and faculty of mind, and are not within the triple world. So he has already passed the 6 ayatanas out of the 12 ayatanas. He has already surpassed the faculties of eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, and mind. If Tathagata uses the 6 sense faculties, then he would be of no difference as the mundane beings who perceive the external world through this 6 faculties, isn't it? Then that would be false. So the next one then it says that the Tathagata is not within the triple world, the world of desire, the world of form, the world of formlessness, because all these 3 realms are still within the samsara. Therefore, Tathagata do not abide in, is not trapped or fettered in the 3 world or triple world. The next one then it says that the Tathagata have already transcended the 3 defilement. In fact, during the stage of the causal stage, the Tathagata has already then surpassed all the defilements, the defilements of affliction, defilements of habitual patterns, and imputed defilements. The 7th one, it talks about he is in accord with the 3 emancipations, the 3 gates of emancipations. The 8th one, it talks about completing the 3 illuminations, and where that means that he's then equivalent to ignorance. When it talks about equivalent, when it talks about 3 illuminations, it talks about the illumination of knowing the past and future lives, the illumination of then miraculous penetrations, as well as all the bodhisattvas' illuminations of knowing the 5 sciences and so on. So it includes all of that. That is then the 3 illuminations. The next one, he over here it talks about equivalent to ignorance. In fact, equivalent to ignorance is then different in different editions. According to the Qianlong's Tripitaka, where it says that completing the three illuminations and they attain the non-attainment, or through the non-attainment they have attainment. I think next time if we were to study it again, we will then use the text from the Qianlong's Tripitaka text. I think for those of you who would propagate this teaching, it is probably the best for you to use the Qianlong's Tripitaka. The Qianlong's Tripitaka has a great influence coming all the way through the Kangshi's Tripitaka, which is one of the most reliable edition. That is the Kangxi Emperor's Tripitaka. And it also includes the Tibetan version in it, the Tibetan editions in it. Therefore, I think the Qianlong version of the Vimalakirti Sutra and any sutras, the Qianlong Emperor's Tripitaka would be really reliable. Therefore, this particular stanza or sentence over here is a bit difficult to explain, but maybe it still works. When I was reading into the commentaries, including Master Sun Zhao and Kumara Jiva, they used this particular version to make commentaries. Yesterday, I think they felt that the classes were too easy. How about today? Dharmakaya and Madhyamika, what do you think? Now the ninth one, where he says that he is neither in the single characteristic nor different characteristics. It is not of a single characteristic, because he already then has all the merits that could manifest in many ways, nor it is a different characteristic where then has many different, something solidly existing in many folds. It's not like that either. It is in fact like space. That is one nature. That is of one nature. The second one, it says that he is neither self-characteristic nor an other characteristic. That's why in the Tibetan version we said a lot of malapso, which means not or nor. In Chinese, it usually just used one syllable, that is bu, but in Tibetan, we would have many different words to then make a negative or to say no. Have many different words. When in Chinese it says there's no ear, eye, nose, but in the Tibetan version it says that no eye, no ear, no nose. So it all has this word no in front of it. That's why when I was reading it, it's rather long compared to the Chinese translation. So in this part it talks about how he is neither a self-characteristic nor an other characteristic, because he is not of a self-characteristic, because he could then manifest in many different forms to benefit other sentient beings, but he does not have other characteristic, because he does not grasp onto, he does not then have other characteristics to fit others. And the next one is that he is neither without characteristics nor does he grasp characteristics. He does not have a characteristic because he is then constantly in the state of peace, of ultimate peace. And then according to Avatamsaka Sutra, it says that infinite, tranquil, the reality body is non-dual and pure. Sentient beings clinging to duality, you guide by myriad emanations. But in this stanza, it talks about two aspects. The first aspect is that it doesn't have any intrinsic existing characteristic, nor does he grasp the characteristics, which means that he would then manifest in many ways to benefit sentient beings, such as when he manifests himself when he manifests into forms to benefit others as a Nirmanakaya body, and he would benefit others without differentiate the others. For example, give one but not give the other. Therefore, it says that he does not grasp the characteristics. He is not of this shore nor the other shore. This shore means samsara, and the other shore means nirvana, nor the current. The current means the affliction. So he does not abide in any of those. The fifth one is that yet he converts sentient beings, which is the 12th one, and yet he converts sentient beings in such a way he would then benefit beings. In the Tibetan version and maybe some other versions, it doesn't, or editions or translations, it doesn't really have this, yet he converts or liberates or helps sentient beings. I view him in extinction, yet he is not permanently in extinction. He is neither this nor that, and he neither uses this nor uses that. He constantly then abide in this this ultimate tranquility, but he manifests in many different ways, unlike arhats, unlike Ashravakas and Pradika Buddhas, where they would just simply abide in complete extinction. The Tathagata is not like that at all. Next one is that he is neither this nor that. His wisdom is neither, he does not abide only in wisdom nor compassion, and he neither uses this nor uses that, which means that he does not then hold on to the object that he need to help, he need to benefit. He doesn't really distinguish the object that he need to help this one but not that one. He does not do that. In fact, he has this all-pervasive wisdom and compassion to all without differentiating. He can so in the previous over here, he cannot be understood with wisdom, nor can he be known by consciousness. The Dharmakaya has already surpassed all kinds of forms. It cannot be understood through the Noble One's wisdom, nor the consciousness of sentient beings, where it in fact talks about the object and subject from these two aspects. In fact, from here onwards, then talks about devoid of any forms, where it has 11 points to describe the Tathagata. So let's look at this part. The first one is that he is without darkness, which is ignorance, without brightness. In fact, we often compare brightness and darkness. If darkness does not exist, then how can you? If the nature of darkness does not exist, how can there be the nature of brightness? From the aspect of nature, then the darkness and brightness are both not existent. The next one, the second one says without name. And without name, if you don't have a name, how can there be any characteristics? The Tathagata does not have the characteristic of self, the characteristic of others, the characteristic of long life or of time. So that's the characteristic of the Tathagata. The third one, he is without strength, without weakness. In front of sentient beings, Tathagatas are perceived as strong, but when they have a great compassion, then people could be viewed as weak. But we can understand it from this way, that without one, how can you compare the other? If there's no strength, how can you then point out there's a weakness? Do you understand that there's a comparison? The fourth one says that, and neither pure nor defiled. In our world, how we perceive this world, we think that this is good, that is not good. This is black, that is white, this is right, that is wrong. In this world, we have so much boundaries, so much comparisons between one to the other. We have so much dichotomy. The kind of education that we receive ever since we were little is that either you're wrong or you're right. And this is already deeply rooted in our mind. But the teaching of the Buddha, or the teachings of Madhyamika, detailedly analyzed and dissected this kind of thinking is in fact wrong. Because whatever you label it as right or wrong, the nature of such does not exist. Today, of course, we're talking about Dharmakaya, which seems to be far-fetched. But since every sentient being's mind is the Dharmakaya, then we're really talking about something very practical. We constantly label one as pure and the other one as defiled, one as right and the other one as wrong. But through the studying of Madhyamika, of the middle way, you will be able to then understand that this is not right. If you feel that there's something that is strong and that is weak, then can you further investigate and see, does that strong or strength could last forever, or that weakness would that weakness last forever? This is also taught in quantum physics, that in fact everything exists through comparison, and there's no truly existent nature that exists in anything. When we talk about it, there's no name, there's no characteristic, there's no property that truly exists. But those are really our conceptual mind. And once you truly investigate into such kind of concepts, then you'll be able to see that those are all built up on a wrong base, and it doesn't really truly exist. So this is what it's talking over here. The fifth one, then, it talks about he does not occupy a region, nor does he transcend to that region. The sixth one talks about he is neither conditioned nor unconditioned. The conditioned nor the unconditioned, he's not the conditioned. That's very easy to understand, but he's neither the unconditioned, because he could use the spontaneous manifestation. According to the Yomi Yanshu's The Mind Mirror, where he says that the Dharmakaya of the Buddha is similar to the space. It is manifestation arise according to circumstances, like the moon reflected on the river, on the water. There's really no other way to explain. So he is without manifestation and without explanation. the eighth one talks about the 6 parameters. We usually talk about the dichotomy of you're being generous or you're being stingy. But over here, it talks about how the Tathagata transcends such dichotomy. It says that he is neither charitable or stingy, neither observant nor transgressive of the precepts, neither forbearant nor angry, neither diligent nor lazy, neither composed or perturbed, and neither wise nor foolish. For the Shravakas and Pratika Buddhas, according to the morality of the mundane beings, how we feel about the 6 paramitas is that this is exactly what we need to practice. But in the stage of Dharmakaya, in fact, the 6 paramitas and all the things that is completely opposite of the 6 paramitas and the good and bad, the right and wrong, they're really of one nature and one taste. So to accept such understanding of defilement and purity are one. The 9th one then talks about he is neither sincere nor dissembling. It doesn't have any difference in the nature. The 10th one talks about neither coming nor going. 11th, neither existing nor entering. And then it summarizes the previous ones, talks about all the paths of words are eliminated. So the words that we use to express everything cannot express such stage. Just as stated in the Madhyamika Avatara, where it says that to him who taught that things arise dependently, nor ceasing, not arising, not annihilated, not yet permanent, not coming, not departing, not different, not the same, and the stilling of all thought, the perfect peace, to him, the best of teachers, perfect Buddha, I bow down. This is the profound teaching that's taught by the Tathagata. This is the most supreme teaching of the codependent, the dependent arising that's taught only by the Buddha. After investigate in such a way, after thorough analysis, you'll be able to come to the understanding that such kind of description is reasonable. That's the second part where it says that it is devoid of name, devoid of imputation. So the third part. The third part then, it started with he is neither a field of blessings nor not a field of blessings. In fact, all the way from here till they told the later part, then it is the description, it is then devoid of description, or the it includes 16 points. So the first point, it talks about he is neither a field of blessings nor not a field of blessings. We often talk about field of blessings. That is the object that is worthy of offering, that will be giving you blessings. So the Dharmakaya is neither a field of blessings nor not a field of blessings. The second part it talks about he is neither one worthy of offering nor not worthy of offering. We often talk about if the object is worthy of offering, but in terms of Dharmakaya, then it doesn't really have any of the extremes of worthy or not worthy to be offered or to receive offering, to have the such action of offering. So it's a threefold emptiness over here. The third one talks about he neither grasp nor forsake. The fourth one talks about he neither has characteristic nor is without characteristic. All the characteristics or forms are not existent on Tathagata. When we talk about Tathagata, Tathagatas then cut through all the fabrications. Characteristics such as single characteristic or characteristic of many. But he doesn't have those characteristics nor not having characteristics. Because the nature of the Dharmakaya doesn't have characteristics, but in front of the sentient beings, it could manifest in the forms or in the Nirmanakaya aspect where he would have such characteristics, many different characteristics. So that's what it says here. The fifth one is that he is identical to the true limit and equivalent to the Dharma nature. The Tathagata is the truth, the ultimate truth. In Avatamsaka Sutra, it says that Dharmakaya, the most supreme and subtle, cannot be perceived by any. To tame and enlighten sentient beings, the guiding master being its manifestation. In our realization, in our perceptions, we need to have the subject and object. Therefore, in order to benefit sentient beings, then the Tathagatas would manifest in different kind of characteristics or forms. So whenever we dedicate our merit, we would then rely upon such conditioned Dharma, where we would then think in and make aspiration in such a way that may I and may all sentient beings, may this world be in this peace. And this is according to the truth. And by the inner strength, by the conditions of the truth, the law of truth, and the conditions of the inner strength, the conditions of the words that is composed with such strength, then when all such conditions are matured, the fruition would naturally arise, would naturally ripen. So that's the fifth one. The sixth one talks about he is indescribable and incalculable. He cannot be measured through the mind nor the speech. Your speech, your mind is very limited, but the nature of Dharmakaya is expansive. So it's very difficult to express the Tathagata through your language. Just as you are using your finger to then pointing at the moon, can you really point at the moon? You can't, but you're suggesting it. Just as pointing out instructions. The next one talks about he is neither great nor small. He doesn't have a body, so he's not great, but he is not small either, because he's all pervasive of all the phenomena. Therefore, he is neither great nor small. The eighth one, he is neither vision, nor hearing, nor perceiving, nor knowing. That's the eighth one, where it talks about he cannot be perceived by vision, nor through your hearing faculty, nor perceived through the faculty of nose, the faculty of tongue. He cannot then perceive such feelings or touch or then tasting, nor knowing. So you cannot perceive the Tathagata through the six faculties, nor your consciousness, nor your mind. The ninth one says that he then transcends the host of fetters. According to Mahayana teachings, it talks about the nature of fetters are in fact pure and devoid of any intrinsic existence. Therefore, he transcends the host of fetters. The 10th one says that he is equivalent to the various types of wisdom and identical to sentient beings. Tathagata is equivalent to the various types of all the Tathagata's wisdom. At the same time, the sentient being's mind is also equivalent to that. In some different editions, it is then translated a bit different. It could be a little bit different. He is without discrimination with regard to the Dharma. He does not then discriminate with any kind of dharmas, any kind of phenomena, or any kind of According to Zen Buddhism, it says that when the thoughts have already deceased, that's when the body of Dharmakaya thrive. So once your thoughts are abruptly stopped, then you may be able to then recognize your Nirmanakaya, or excuse me, the Dharmakaya. So in some aspect, it talks about no gain and no losing. There's also another aspect where it talks about in terms of the mind, it is without feeling. In terms of speech, it is without impurity. In terms of mind, it's without vexation. That's another way of explaining it. The 13th one, without intention. In terms of the cause, it is without intentionality. And in terms of fruition, is without activation, because the Dharmakaya already surpassed the karma. The 14th one says that without generation and without extinction. If there's no birth, how can you say there's a death? It's the same meaning. The 15th one says that without fear, without sorrow, without joy, without dislike, and without attachment. Without any kind of fetters. If you could arrive in such a state, you would feel quite happy, isn't it? If you don't have any fear or sorrow or joy and any kind of afflictions, wouldn't that be great? Maybe you feel that the people who are vegetated, they're like that as well. But that's not true, because in fact, realization and insights are completely different. I heard people complaining to me that they'd rather be vegetated because samsara is too suffering. In fact, I think lots of the afflictions are because of your own grasping. The example I gave yesterday about how a wild horse would get would get mad simply because of a small mosquito's bit. And I think the modern people's afflictions are just like that as well. It seems that they would react drastically based on something very small. And if you are like that, that means you need to practice harder in order to have better realizations. So in the Tantrayana as well as Mahayana teachings, I think lots of the teachings are quite supreme. Even without attaining such realization, if you just simply read that without fear, without sorrow, without joy, without dislike, and without attachment, and you would feel quite relaxed and at ease, and at least temporarily, some of your afflictions would be pacified, and you should practice diligently. Otherwise, you will continuously to circle around in this ocean of samsara. In the past, you probably had lots of grasping towards your fame and wealth and gain and lost. But to certain realization level, to certain stage of your practice, you will be much more relaxed about it. I went back to my hometown that I left 30 years ago, that I never really returned. At that time, I felt like I've already gained a lot. It's not because of Mahati, it's not because of my treasury story, my turtle story or anything. But when I saw that the mountains, it seems like they are still the same, and the mountains and the rivers are still unchanged, but the people, they have already changed, because at that time, all the people who live in different valleys and who live here and there, we were so familiar with one another. But now when I look at the new generation, the second generation, the third generation, I barely know anyone. And then at that time, I really felt this is impermanence. Although the mountains and the vegetations and the water does not change much, but the people changes really quickly. So let's just think about after 10 years or 20 years, what is going to be the circumstances? And now we have the opportunity to accumulate merit. So we should utilize this time to practice upon the emptiness and bodhicitta. Otherwise, if you continuously to grasp onto all the trivial matters in this world, then your life would pass without you noticing it. In the past, I know some people who had lots of grasping towards the wealth, and they've already passed away. And when I was on the car and passing through all the valleys and all the mountains, and the vivid pictures of many people who used to live in those places just appeared in front of my eyes. And I remembered how they used to grasp onto their family members, how they used to grasp onto their wealth, how they have different kind of attachment. And all of these vivid images, in fact, made me feel that I've gained a lot through that trip, because I've gained more insights and deeper understanding of impermanence. I met some older, some seniors over there, and I couldn't remember who they are. And when they introduced themselves again, they said they were my childhood friend, and I remembered. And it's just very stunning for me, because that's very different than how I remember them. Anyhow. if we can practice and eventually have such realization of without fear, without sorrow, without joy, without dislike, and without attachment, that would be wonderful. Even if you can't, at least if you read this constantly and then study Madhyamika, then it could still provide you with lots of benefit. The next one, it says that without past, without future, without present, where it talks about the 3 times. The Dharmakaya does not have a past because it does not exist in the past. It does not have a future because that happens later and has not yet happened. And without a present, if there's no past and present, if there's no solid existence of past and present, how could there be a present at all? So that's from the aspect of the 3 times. And then the next verse talks about the summary where it says that the Tathagata cannot be discriminated or manifested using any verbal explanations at all. So this part is from the previous first point till here, it talks about devoid of description or devoid of verbal explanation. According to Master Huiyuan's commentary, I really think that they investigated very thoroughly, just as how we use different outlines to understand the context, the content. The Tibetan version and the Xuanzang's version and this version is rather very different, but I didn't really point out the different ones. Otherwise, you'll get all very confused. Maybe I'll just use Master Huiyuan's commentary, which explains on this particular edition. I think this part where it talks about Nirmanakaya, where it talks about Dharmakaya, that could lead to enlightenment. But if I were to add into more explanations, it may get you very much confused, and maybe that will be counted as my negative karma. Therefore, I really encourage you to read into more commentaries on this part after the class. So I'm not going to confuse you more in the class. In fact, in my time, I used to read lots of the commentaries after class and into different reference books after class to further understand and the text in depth. Then the next part is Vimalakirti states that a world-honored one, such is the body of Tathagata, and thus do I perform its contemplation. To use this contemplation is called the correct contemplation. If one uses some other contemplation, this is called incorrect contemplation. According to the Sutra of Contemplation, in fact, I translated that sutra from Chinese language into Tibetan language in our annual retreat this year. I think I'm going to ask the people to. I think I'm going to ask the retreatant to then chant and read this particular sutra that I translated from Chinese language into Tibetan language. In this Sutra of Contemplation, it has 16 contemplation metaphors such as water and sun and so on. And then in each of the contemplation, it then ended by saying that if you use this method to contemplate, this is called correct contemplation. If you use other contemplation, that is called incorrect contemplation. So the previous ones, that we've already talked about all the different kinds of contemplation of Tathagata that is devoid of delusion, devoid of names, devoid of description. If you could contemplate the Tathagata from these three aspects, then this is correct contemplation. But if you were to view or contemplate Dharmakaya Tathagata in a way that it has characteristics or forms, then that is the incorrect contemplation. I think I'll continue a little bit. I don't want to stop at the point where we talk about incorrect contemplation. I think that's not really auspicious. And then Shariputra then asked Vimalakirti. So Shariputra suddenly appears and asks, "Where did you die to become born here? And how can..." So Shariputra then said that you were such a great bodhisattva, then from which world did you come from? From which Buddha land you come from? So Vimalakirti then would explain, and we'll study that part tomorrow.